everyone, today we're going to talk about what can we do as educators to make sure that we have authentic discussion in the classroom. Okay, so the strategy that I am going to talk about is the fishbowl strategy. Okay, and like any other strategy, the fishbowl just basically helps you get your students to have authentic discussion. Okay, so there's 6 major steps that you need to take in order to make sure that fishbowl runs effectively in your classroom. Now remember, what works for one educator may not work for you as an educator. Okay, so step number 1, you must have a piece of text. Text is what? Any type of information. You can have a novel, you can have a poem, you can have a short story, or even a newspaper article. Just something that the kids can relate to, or they can relate it to their lives. Okay, so step number 1, have a piece of text. Step number 2, make sure that you have already indulged the kids in understanding what it is they're going to talk about, right? You don't want to walk inside of your classroom and say, here guys, here's what we're going to talk about. Let's talk about fish if they never ever read about fish, right? So make sure that you expose your students to the article once you have already chosen the article. So now we're on step number 2. So step number 1 was to have a piece of text. Step number 2 was to make sure that your kids have read the text and they're able to discuss it, right? Because who wants a dead discussion in their classroom? Right? Step number 3, make sure that your classroom is set up for the perfect discussion. Okay, so fishbowl strategy uses 2 circles. You have an inner circle and you have an outer circle. Okay, so if this was your classroom, right, you would have an inner circle. You would have an inner circle and you would have an outer circle. Okay. Usually the inner circle has about 4 to 5 students, right? That's what will work for me. But you, if you have, let's say, 30 students in your classroom, right, you may be able to do this. Once they walk through the door, you can tell which student to go where. So you can have, 15 students on the inside and 15 students on the outside. Okay? So step number 1 was to choose a text. Step number 2 was to make sure your students have read the text and they're able to engage about it. And step number 3 was to make sure that your classroom was able to have the fishbowl set up. Okay? Now step number 4 is we're going to give our students roles. Okay? So the students that are in the inside circle, or the inner circle is what you would call it, is they will be the ones that are discussing. Okay? So they're discussing. And your other 15 love bugs, 6, 7, 8, they will be the fish keepers. Okay, so now both of these 2 circles play important roles. So the 15 that you have chosen to go inside the circle will be the ones that are discussing. Now, what are they going to be discussing about? That is where you, the teacher, will pick the topic in which you want them to discuss. So, for example, in my classroom, we're reading the novel Black Boy. Okay? So, I will pull a topic or a subject from the novel Black Boy. You, or whatever you're reading in your class, or whatever piece of text that you're reading, you'll pull that discussion from the text, okay? So now the people or the students that are in the inner circle has an idea of what they're going to be discussing. The people on the outside need something to do too, right? Because if not, then you'll lead, without them having something to do, they will begin to disrupt the class. So what they're going to do is they're going to basically keep over and watch over the fish. Okay, so as a teacher, this is when you have the discretion to do whatever it is that you want to do, right? You can either just tell them that they need to make a note of whatever their fish is talking about, right? So these 15 fish are keeping eyes on these 15 fish. So therefore, every fish has a watcher. So whenever the person in the inner circle talks, the outer circle, that fish keeper will keep note of what they're discussing, okay? So let's say Johnny is sitting right here, okay? Johnny makes a comment, okay? Johnny Watcher, fish watcher, which is right here, will make a note. So this is students, this is Johnny, Fishwasher, okay? Fishwasher. He would say, Johnny made 5 comments. Okay? So, we went over 3 steps. The first step was to choose to make sure that you have a text, okay? Step number 2 was to make sure that your classroom led for the discussion, okay? Step number 3 is to make sure that your students know their roles, okay? So the students know that they're either going to be discussing or watching over their fish, okay? And step number 4 is to make sure that you set down the rules, okay? So all the students need to make sure that they understand what is expected of them. For example, you need to tell your kids that if they are inside of the group, the inner circle, they need to make sure they make a statement. They need to make sure they either agree with the statement or disagree. And the babies that are on the outside need to make sure that they're keeping tabs. Okay? Once this is done, step number 5 is they're going to discuss. Okay? You're going to sit back as a teacher. You're going to step back and you're going to allow them to discuss. And you're going to be also keeping note of what the inner circle is talking about. Okay? And then step number 6, you're going to grade them. Of course, you're going to allow these students to grade their inner parts too. But as a teacher, we're going to also make sure that we have our grade in mind too. Okay? So this is the fishbowl strategy. Ways to make sure that your classroom has authentic discussion. Good luck.
Goodbye, Miss Grant.